Hello, welcome to another edition of Metis Warrior here with Timothy and Alexandria.
Hello, everybody.
So today we're going to talk about the RCMP. Don't get it confused with Barnum and Bailey's circus. And don't get them confused with a bunch of, circus clowns. But it's pretty comical when they don't know. It would be comical if it wouldn't be so sad and tragic that they didn't know what baking soda was. And you're going to want to stay tuned for our special guest that we're going to be interviewing today,
Clayton Boucher.
And we will actually have Corian actually on the show as well. And so I'm going to tell you that the RCMP really needs to incorporate part of their training as to what baking soda is. Although I believe that they know what baking soda is. They just chose to screw over a Métis with some fraudulent charges and some bad accusations on a box of baking soda.
So before we go into our special guest, Clayton Boucher, and the horrific event that happened to him, you're just not going to believe it. We're going to be talking about the RCMP, systematic racism, discrimination, wrongful conviction. You hear that all over all the time in regards to the RCMP and what is going on. And in reviewing a lot of comments that I see all over social media, some people are on the opinion that the RCMP was literally formed to kill and displace Indigenous people by the government of Canada for profit by the order of John A. MacDonald, who spent his entire political career trying to eradicate Indigenous people. And the pattern of irresponsible or really sadistic leadership would continue in Canada's Indian residential schools, which MacDonald introduced as a nationwide program of assimilation in 1883.
And so let's talk about something for a minute. Again, we go back to that letter that David Chartrand sent out. And here's a question for the RCMP and for the police in general. If you want the Indigenous people to trust you, you cannot let these people running organizations continually get away. We have severe misappropriation of funding in various Métis organizations, the MNC and the MMF included, and what strings have been pulled to help members of certain leaders' families. So these are questions that are out there, and we want answers for it. But yeah, the RCMP is totally corrupt.
And let's put this into perspective, if we would. And this is a quotation. When the school is on the reserve, the child lives with his parents who are savages. He is surrounded by savages. He is simply a savage who can read and write. And this was said by John A. MacDonald. He mentioned this was a quote told to the House of Commons folks. And another quote is, "Indian matters form so great a portion of the general policy of the government of Canada that I think it is necessary for the Prime Minister, whoever he may be, to have that in his own hands." A quote again from MacDonald. He wrote that in 1881. And we're going to give some quick statistics. According to a 2017 news analysis, an Indigenous person in Canada is more than 10 times more likely to be shot and killed by a police officer than a white person. And between 2017 and 2020, 25 Indigenous people were shot and killed by the RCMP.
Yeah, the murdering police, the RCMP, out there trying to get rid of Indigenous peoples by killing them.
And in the decades spanning 2007 to 2017, Indigenous people accounted for more than a third of people shot to death by the RCMP. And we're going to go more into Clayton's story and focus on Métis Nation of Alberta President Audrey Portress, who would not help. So you're going to go into Clayton Boucher's horrific story, and if it doesn't make you sick to your stomach, I don't know what will, folks.
Okay, but before we get started in today's show, I want to take it back to our last show that we did and show you pictures and video from the actual incident that occurred at Clyde Service Station, Petro Canada. Here you see the clerk who is out back from behind the counter. It looks like he's engaging Carl in an argument. Again, we were not there on the scene, so you know people can argue back and forth who's to blame for the assaults that happened. But the video and the pictures seem to be pretty clear here, because Carl was trying to get gas. He said he was denied gas. The clerk would not sell him gas. And here we see that Carl is now outside. And what you're going to witness is the clerk outside. So why did the clerk go outside? This is escalating the situation to where it obviously ended in violence. So you tell me, if the RCMP is looking at this, how could you just not also look at the clerk who clearly is outside escalating the situation? Because if you watch this video, I mean, you see the assaults take place right here. You can argue back and forth who started this, blah, blah, blah. But it's pretty clear the video doesn't lie. You see the video take place. The clerk is definitely outside. He is clearly having some type of issue with the Indigenous men trying to purchase gas. Why is this situation escalated to the point of violence? Here I've slowed it down to a quarter speed, and here you can see at a quarter speed, Carl's outside, and here you're going to witness again. Why is the clerk following Carl? If that's what was the case of why he came outside, was he following Carl outside? But obviously it resulted in an assault happening here. And so take a very good look at the video. The video does not lie. Carl was kicked in the face. The RCMP did nothing about that. He was actually assaulted, and you know, they did nothing about Carl being assaulted here in this video. Now we're going to take it back to regular speed real quick. And we want to talk about some of the problems. The clerk actually has bad conduct and bad behavior here and is not responding well at all, because this makes no sense on why he wanted to engage Carl outside. Because here you see him back from, again, he's back from behind the counter, and he's clearly talking to Carl. Carl and his friend is trying to purchase gas. They're trying to purchase gas, and they're being denied the right to purchase gas. So Carl feels like he's being discriminated against, and they're being discriminated against, and they're not being allowed gas. Go back and listen to the last interview if you want to hear it. And I'm going to show you why I think the clerk is wrong. Here, the clerk is behind the counter talking with Carl. They're having a conversation clearly. Okay? Clearly. Now the clerk is not behind the counter here. You don't see him behind the counter. And here the clerk is actually going to come around and actually engage Carl in the argument. Now you tell me how this seems right. It seems like the situation is just escalating. Again, behind the counter. Here we see him behind the counter, and he's being denied the right to purchase gasoline. And we know that Métis people and Indigenous people experience racism from many different businesses and also the police as well. And again, I just think it's highly inappropriate that the situation was escalated, and way we see it from the videos and right here, and when you watch the video, and we're going to re-show the video here in a minute, you see it. It definitely appears that the clerk has escalated this situation. You know, I don't know what the problem was. I can't hear what the words were being said inside the store, but we do know that Carl makes it back outside of the store, where he's walking back to his vehicle, and then the clerk actually comes outside. Why does the clerk come outside? That is the question, because this obviously is just escalating the situation, and Carl's assaulted, and we see that it resulted in violence, and it seems like both parties said that they were assaulted. The clerk claimed he was assaulted, and Carl's saying he's assaulted, and we see this back and forth. But if you really to point the finger, I would say that the clerk handled this wrong, and he escalated the situation. He should have just sold him the gas from the get-go. Carl had stated that he was being denied gasoline, that he was unable to purchase the gas, and if that was the case, then yeah, the clerk should have just sold him the gas from the get-go. Why would you not sell Indigenous people gasoline, Clyde service station? I have no idea why you would not sell Indigenous people gasoline. Again, we were not there, so we didn't get to hear the exchange of words, but according to hearing Carl's side of the story, watching the video and looking at the pictures, it does seem like the clerk did escalate the situation. So why did the RCMP go against Carl and not against the clerk here? Obviously, that appears to be discrimination and hate at play by the RCMP for sure. Hello, Clayton. I'd like to welcome you to the Metis Warrior Show. You're here with Timothy and Alexandria, and we'd like to give you our condolences for what happened to you. We think it was a severe injustice that you were made to go to your wife's funeral while wrongfully in prison in shackles and an orange jumpsuit, and that is a horror that I hope never happens to anybody else again. But welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And if you could, what I would like to do is take it back to the day of the arrest. If you could describe a little bit of the events that day, what happened that led up to your arrest?
I was going to a store to go get some cigarettes and munchies first thing in the morning, and I got surrounded by cops right at the store. It was of course it was a high stake takedown. It was just, they overdid it, of course, right?
Right.
And I was arrested for a breach for not giving my probation officer a change of address. But that was all a crock of BS. And from there, they did a search warrant at the residence of where I was staying at.
Okay.
And they couldn't find no drugs. Then they found baking soda that was up in the cupboard in a box, for crying out loud. And they concluded it was cocaine.
Oh my God. Baking soda.
I waited like 6-7 hours later while I was still in the cells there. They came to me and gave me a big list of the charges they were charging me with, and I couldn't believe what they were charging me with at the time.
So, Clayton, based on what you're saying, would you say that the RCMP racially profiled you?
Oh, 100%.
Because
100%.
Yeah, I mean, because we've spoken with a lot of people that, have had, encounters with the RCMP, and there's racial discrimination and racial profiling by the RCMP. And the thing that bothers me too, Clayton, is that you were held in custody for more than 3 months on drug charges after the tests showed that the substances were not drugs. So
yes, I was held in jail for 3.5 more months.
And so you were telling us before that you found out that they actually found out. What time frame did they actually find out that it was not drugs? Was it a 5-week period you were saying?
Exactly 1 month after my arrest. February 23rd and 24th, they got the results from Health Canada, and they just came back as negative for any kind of controlled substance. And that was it.
And they still held you in there.
They still held me for another 3.5 more months.
But you know what? The thing that bothers me too is that when they said they located some white powdery substances, included substances in an Arm Arm & Hammer baking soda box in a kitchen cupboard, it would be safe to say that the RCMP or whatever, should be familiar with Arm & Hammer baking soda, and maybe it's a lack of training that they don't understand that baking soda is not cocaine.
They could have did a field test right there.
Well,
every unit is equipped with a field test thing to test any substance, and if it needed to have further testing, they would have sent it out to Health Canada.
Well, here's the thing that we know that happens whenever somebody's wrongfully arrested. Obviously, it's not okay when you're let out 3-4 months later, and they say, "Oh, okay, we were wrong." I mean, that is not okay, because that time that you were wrongfully arrested in prison, it actually caused disruption in your life, and they took something from you that you can never get back, which was time that you could have had spent with your wife. I mean, and who knows, if you were out, it could have actually prevented her from actually being in that car accident in the first place. And so, so these people use discrimination. They're very racist against Indigenous people, and they don't care whose lives they destroy. And what they took from you, you can't even put a dollar amount on.
Yes, that's something that I have to live with for the rest of my life. I know it could have been a different outcome if I was out, and that's just, like I said, it's something I have to live with for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and you know what, Clayton, people have to wonder, and yourself have to wonder. I mean, they have the field testers right on them where they can immediately test what powdery substances are. So the analysis would have been instantaneous, so then there would have been no basis of any of those charges against you. So you got to wonder what their underlying motivation is. Why? I mean, were they just lazy that they didn't want to test it on site?
Yeah, at that time I was on that bail for that previous charge.
Right.
And they, like I said, they were bothering me, they were harassing me all the time. And at that time, they just wanted me locked up. That's all.
Yeah, and that's what they want with most Indigenous people.
Go ahead.
I was saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's what they want for many Indigenous people, just to be locked up. And that's colonialism at its finest right there. That's what they set out to do, is just destroy lives. And there's a huge problem with the RCMP, a huge problem.
Well, the RCMP really, in my experience as well too, they're really on a power trip. In a lot of instances, they think that they are above the law. They can manipulate, they can twist the law, and people make mistakes in lives. And if people, if you're on probation or you're on parole, etc., and you're doing what you're supposed to do, they are not there to harass, intimidate, racially profile anybody. It's none of their bloody business to take the law literally into their own hands and try and in a sense, destroy somebody's life. They're not the judge and the jury. A whole whack of retraining needs to occur. And I just think it makes me sick to my stomach when I read about your particular case and just the unethical behavior, the bending, manipulating laws, and just being, to me, it was just like a vendetta or vengeance for whatever sick, twisted reason.
Yes, that's right. They destroyed my life, and that's something, like I said, I'll never get back, and that's something I have to live with daily for the rest of my life. And yeah, it's a hard road right now.
Let me ask you this question: have they? And I know that you took them to court and you won your case there. At least that's what the article was saying. But I would hope that they've dropped everything against you that you were on bail for before, because you were locked up for something that you didn't even do, and that's wrong.
Well, it's the apology I wanted the most. I don't care about money. It's not about money to me. It was the apology, and that's what I got.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing that Clayton, for me too, is that they couldn't even spell your name correctly in that apology. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. They misspelled her name.
They may want to go back to school and just learn spelling.
Yeah, that's like throwing assault on a wound. That's right.
Yeah, like assaulted wound. Let me ask you something. During your time of being in prison, did you find how were the people that were incarcerated? How were they being treated inside?
Well, I was there at the time, knowing I shouldn't have been there, right? And that was hard enough as it is. I've seen other people, similar cases to mine that I thought that shouldn't have been there themselves. But I just kept to myself and I was hoping my lawyer would have did his job, which he never did.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was horrible.
So, you just made the statement that your lawyer didn't do the job he should have. Do you think it was because you were Indigenous, or did that have anything to do with it, or he was just a complete incompetent?
Well, he's Indigenous himself, but it's just, I don't know, it's just, to me, it's a white man's world. And he's got, I don't know, there's no reason, there's no explanation for not answering my phone call in 3.5 months.
Wow, he didn't answer your phone call for 3.5 months?
That's right. His assistant answered the calls. That was it, not him.
Wow,
maybe he was on a whirlwind trip somewhere or whatever. I mean, when you're hired...
No, he was at his office. I left a lot of messages for him and nothing ever came back to me.
Did you file a complaint with the Barristers Society?
Yes, I did. Only when she died, that's when things started moving.
Well, after you filed
he realized that something was happening.
After you filed the complaint with the Barristers Society, did you get a response back from them on anything?
Right, quickly. And of course, me doing this myself at the time, like the first one went to adjudicator, and they didn't have no grounds. They said I didn't have no grounds for a complaint to be furthered to the conduct committee.
Right.
And that's when I got my lawyer. When I hired my lawyer for this lawsuit. And he did all the paperwork for me, and it was amazing.
So the Barrister Society told you didn't have no grounds for a complaint because your lawyer wasn't answering the phone for 3.5 months?
Nope, I didn't have no grounds.
Wow, the Barrister Society, there's a huge problem with them too. Man, I just can't even imagine being in your situation, going through the things that you were going through, and for them to do you the way that they did you. And they've screwed over a lot of people, and people seem to think it's okay. And like you said, it's a white man's world because, I mean, these people get away with it. And the people who are Indigenous, like your Indigenous lawyer you said you had, he caved, it seems to us, that he caved to the white man's system, the colonial system.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I also had a question for you too, Clayton, about the Métis Nation of Alberta, Audrey Portress.
Mm-hmm.
Did you approach Audrey Portress? I mean, when you're in an organization.
Yes, I did a number of times. I even had a sit down with her.
Okay.
And they blew straight hot air at me. I needed support. That's what I wanted. And actually, I'm embarrassed to have this Métis card with me because it doesn't mean nothing to me now. They never helped me out. They never helped me out at all.
Audrey Portress needs to be replaced. She's not serving her people. We've heard that from a bunch of people.
Yeah, we've had somebody on Twitter says it's the Portress posse that when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, she doesn't support her citizens, and having a Métis Nation of Alberta card is really useless. You can scrape paint maybe from it.
Yeah, that's right. And what I thought about this is why they didn't support me at all is because they get their government handouts, whatever, they get their government handouts, and I'm thinking she didn't want to shake the tree or whatever, and by her maybe they would have got cut off with their funding, or something like that could have happened, right? It's all about money.
Now, she's not a leader for the people, that's for sure. She needs to step the hell down and let somebody with courage lead in Alberta.
Something like this, if I was leader, I would have backed that person right up myself, But that's the difference.
Yeah, things are in scrambles, and I think funding should be taken away from Alberta if she's going to continue to stay in office there. I don't see why the government would support her. She's not supporting her people. I would think that the government would want leaders to fight for their people, but it seems like the colonial system is doing nothing more than paying these people money, and they use this money not to help their people, but what they use this money for, Clayton, what they use this money for is to actually silence there's so many organizations that are using the money to silence and threaten their people, and that is a problem.
And you know what? I really think, Clayton, that Audrey Portress, I'm not even going to call her president because she ain't no president.
She's worthless.
Audrey Portress, at the very least, should issue you a public apology for not standing behind and beside one of her citizens of the Métis Nation of Alberta. She's disgusting. I mean, she's been in there for 20-some years. It's just time for
her to go.
Because, I mean, this is a prime example of that.
Ousting time.
They say, please, join the Métis Nation of Alberta, get your citizenship card. For what? What do you get? What are you getting for it? Nothing.
Get nothing out of it. Can't even use it as a piece of ID to do something with it, Not even recognized.
Yeah, that's a shame, man. Everybody in Alberta needs to step up to the plate, demand her resignation, because she is absolutely worthless in defending her people. Audrey Portress is no leader at all. But, let me just ask you a question here. When they were arresting you and doing this to you, was there any kind of physical harm that came to you at all?
Well, they arrested me accordingly.
Oh, okay.
There's no violence or anything like that at that time there. And I'm surprised there wasn't, right? But
yeah, but along with that, here they are arresting you for something that you haven't done, and that in itself is just a horrific injustice that can be done to anybody. And to think that these people can, and it's a shame how many people can just get a badge. They get a badge, and then they get out there and destroy lives. And we're supposed to respect the RCMP. I have no respect for the RCMP at all.
I have no respect for them either. I can't stand what they stand for.
No, and people like David Chartrand out there supporting. I mean, in that letter he wrote to the Winnipeg police, and I'm sure you're aware of the story of Alexandria, what she went through with the police there. And then, Chartrand writing the letter to the police chief, and then in that letter thanking the RCMP too. It's like, I don't understand this. It's people these are colonial puppets, and these colonial puppets are oppressing their own people.
Yeah, I mean,
it's all about money.
That's right, and I seen a picture of you with your friends who raised money for you after your arrest. And, what I thought about, again, when I've seen that picture of the money that your friends had raised, and I felt saying, where in the hell is Audrey Portress? I mean, the millions and millions of dollars, they couldn't say, well, here's legal money. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, again, it's all about the money, power, and they've sold their people out to the colonial government. They're going to say they didn't, but I mean, you're a prime example, I'm sure, of many cases that the Métis organizations turn their back on their citizens, and that's not what they're there for. So, it just really saddens me, and it's really disgusting. And the RCMP have oppressed Indigenous Métis people right from their inception, and if somebody says different, they're a liar.
That's true. I agree with you 100%.
I know Corian told us that she went to the with you to talk to the, I guess, Audrey, and she was saying that
Yes.
she was there when they basically didn't help you, and
That's right.
and I can't even imagine what is the need to have an organization that's supposed to be there to represent you, and they're just representing their own bank accounts, their own little missions, and they're not representing the people, man. And this is a damn shame. I just can't get over this.
No, that's just something I just, like I said, the Metis Association doesn't mean nothing to me anymore. They're just nothing to me. They're just nothing at all.
Well, Audrey has to go.
Just like you said, I'm an example of I'm the reason why. To me, why I can't even stand what they stand for either.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's time for Audrey to go. Her and the board, they need to be. Everybody needs to be replaced, and we need to get leaders in there that's going to fight for the people, so people can have pride. A real leader, so people can have pride in having them Métis cards and not be bought off.
That's right.
And so,
Do you here's another question for you, Clayton, because RCMP and police oppression against Indigenous Métis people is a passion of mine, because I've experienced it on the front lines. I've lived it. I mean, I had a SWAT team say that they were going to shoot my 9-year-old son. So I've lived through this nightmare as well. But do you think if you were not a Métis or Indigenous man, do you think the RCMP would have pushed as hard as or harassed you as much? That's just in your opinion.
Never. I probably would have been treated like a king by them.
Exactly, because I mean, I certainly think that the RCMP, I mean, I think they should be totally dismantled. They should be defunded. They should be completely gone. But I mean, there's no training there to deal with Indigenous Métis people. Indigenous people were the first people in Canada, and when the first Prime Minister MacDonald came, I mean, he totally wanted to eradicate Indigenous people. So this RCMP and everything, it's just an appalling. And then you go into the residential schools, the RCMP involved in that, the brutality, the oppression, it's just staggering. And that's why I say that Canada is really a third world country when they deal with anything to do with Métis or Indigenous people, and it's embarrassing and it's disgusting. And what happened to you should have never happened in a million years. And the RCMP could give you 1,000,000 apologies. You can't go back, and I'm sure you're living with, I can't even imagine what you go through. And it's bravery like yours.
On a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, telling your story is bravery, and we can hope that it's going to inspire more people that are at the end of the brutality of the RCMP to step forward.
Yes.
Well, Clayton, before we wrap this up, have we left anything out, or is there anything else that you'd like to add to this?
No, what I said was 100% truth and what I believe in, and I hope what happened to me would never happen to anybody. I wouldn't even wish this upon my worst enemy.
Yeah, I know, and yeah, that's like I say, that's a horrific injustice, and to know that they have the power to do that to people. Again, why fund a racist organization such as the RCMP? They shouldn't be funded, to be honest with you. But there needs to be some severe change there. I mean, our condolences again, and
what I'll do, Clayton, too, is that in the description of the video, I'll put some aspects of your case. But I think it's important when our listeners hear your voice, they get a perspective hearing it, and it brings a sense of humanity to the atrocity that happened. And I mean, everybody deserves a voice, and I can hear it in your voice, and I don't think anybody should go through this. And we really thank you and for taking the time to tell your story, and you're a very brave person, and we apologize for this inhumane atrocity that happened, and our condolences on the loss of your wife as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but you can reach out to us anytime, okay, man? Anytime you want to be on.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
very much.
Clayton.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
So that was Clayton Boucher.
Boucher, yes.
And man, just listening to that story, if anybody out there has baking soda,
Arm and Hammer baking soda.
Arm and Hammer baking soda, maybe you should take it down to your local RCMP and educate them and show them what it is, because clearly they don't know what the hell Arm and Hammer baking soda is. So maybe, I don't know, on their Twitter feed or the RCMP, whatever social media they got, maybe people should send links about what baking soda is, because I mean, for this man to be charged for baking soda, folks.
Yeah, but the thing is, almost every household in Canada has a box of baking soda in their kitchen, and I would maybe rush and dump that sucker down your toilet, because you just never know when the RCMP is going to come a knocking. And it's absolutely, it's even more disgusting. Audrey
White people
Portress.
can have it. Yeah, Audrey Portress.
Where the hell were you, Audrey Portress?
This was 2 injustices done to this man. He was wrongfully imprisoned for something that he didn't do. Okay, this is one. And during this imprisonment, his wife dies in a car accident. He's taken to the funeral in an orange jumpsuit and shackles. That is a huge injustice. But the other injustice is Audrey Portress. Any Métis person in Alberta, Audrey Portress is not your leader. She is not a leader at all. Imagine if it was you that got caught with the real baking soda and accused of it being something else, and you can see how she treats people. She's not there to use that money that they have to help people in these types of situations, and that is not a leader.
Maybe she'll get a hint, and like I said, I'm totally disgusted. Your Métis Nation of Alberta card it's not even worth to scrape.
Because
paint.
the leader is worthless. Audrey Portress is worthless. She's a worthless leader. So she's worthless when it comes to this type of situation. And that is a shame. It is a shame. Audrey Portress, you need to resign. You need to step down. Your time is past. You need somebody in there who has courage that will actually really fight for the people.
And again, in my opinion, she's a female version of David Chartrand.
Okay, let's give Corian a call and get her take on this Audrey situation. So we got you coming on the show today to talk about Clayton Boucher's lack of support from Audrey Portress, and you were you bore witness to the fact that that they just didn't help him.
No, they didn't.
So can you describe what happened that day when y'all walked into the office there?
Well, we went in. I asked him to come with me because we were discussing my case as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it would be a good time for him to come in and more or less consult with her, or more or less tell his side of the story. And she pretty much, we went through my spiel of what happened with Fort McKay there, and then when it came time for Clayton to speak, he asked her, and she more or less kind of hummed and hawed, like, we'll try and help you, and we'll find a way. These were the things that we were being told, and we believed everything. We believed everything that she said. Okay, and then when it came time, there was no help. There was no support. He pretty much had to do this on his own.
So she sat there and she hummed and hawed, and really, he never received, when we talked to him, he actually said that he never received any help at all from them, and he felt
he didn't at all he didn't receive any help whatsoever. When it came time, like, he tried to be, he advocated for himself. He did everything himself. He's the hero in my book because of the fact that he took on the legal system and the systemic racism in our colonial system, which is Canada, and the laws, and he won. And he didn't have any help from anybody other than certain people, like myself, we did the walk and for human rights, and it was just pretty much me and him. And then the satellite chief and council met us at the finish line, and he received a gift because he was honoring his fiance, the love of his life. He wanted to honor her life because he wasn't able to get closure for her death, and it happened during the time that he was in jail. So it was kind of like a healing journey for him, and I heard his story and I wanted to support him, and it would have been nice if we would have had like our leaders support us, but it's not like that for us here in this I guess you could say in this region, and he is from this region.
Yeah, but
his family's from here. He's a Boucher from here. He was raised here. He went to school here. He didn't get no support whatsoever from our region or from the province. He was pretty much just left to fend for himself.
yeah, and that's the problem. The Métis card there is really worthless because when you have someone that's in the position, like Audrey's in the position to really be a leader and try to help the people, she's failing big time in doing that, and that is somebody that needs to be replaced. And when you look at what the RCMP did to Clayton, I mean, good God, they got him for baking soda, and they said it was drugs, and it was in the box, in the baking soda box. How dumb can you be?
Well, I like with that part, I'm not, like I said, I just helped him with the walk, and I tried to promote his story because his story is very heroic in my eyes, because he stood against, like I said, he stood against the judiciary judge and the police and the lawyers. He actually found a very good lawyer, which assisted him and won his case, and he did get an apology. But to us, to me, it's not enough. He needed more publicity, and he needed support from the Métis Nation of Alberta. He should have had our leaders, promoting it. They should have been, morally supporting him, because this is a Métis, and that is up against the justice system. Well, it's just like me. Same thing. I was set up to fail. I didn't have the money. I'm a woman. I'm against leaders that pretty much, how do you say that, had the money, and I didn't have, I guess you could say, the extras. He pretty much was up against all of that and then some. But he was lucky to find a good lawyer. He stood alone. And as far as I'm concerned, we're supposed to be a collective. We're supposed to be those Timsawak, traditional. We stand with our people, but there was nothing like that. They talk about this collective, they talk about tradition, they talk about, how we're all supposed to be united, but I haven't seen that yet. I haven't felt that yet, and that's the sad part. Our leaders are somewhat colonialized themselves, and that's the sad part. And they allow the system to bully us, and they allow the system to label us. We're set up to fail.
Yeah.
And honest to God, we are set up to fail.
That's right,
and that's the sad part.
I agree with you, and they further oppress us. And really, like Audrey Portress, the Métis Nation of Alberta, I mean, what's the point of having a Métis card? Because it's not up to Audrey and the leaders of different regions to judge people. If you're a Métis person, they should stand behind you no matter what, as a united entity, and to fight for the Métis people. And when I heard, Clayton say that Audrey and the Métis Nation of Alberta did nothing, I figured, well, what the hell are you there for? Like, are you there? Well, obviously they're there to, everybody's a number that they get funding from the federal government, but they're not there for the people. And they, like you said, they've become colonialized, where the people mean nothing other than dollar signs. And I mean, we need more people like yourself and Clayton to band together and say, you know, we've had enough, we've been oppressed enough, and now we're being oppressed further by our leaders that all they see is dollar signs, and who cares about the people? And then there's so much nepotism and all this BS going on. It's just really, we can never advance when we have our own leaders having their, you know, they're pushing us further and further down.
I totally agree with you. Now that's one side where, you know, this colonial system is pretty much has a lot of control over the collective, and if we don't challenge I guess you could say, if we don't challenge or if we don't have the money, then what ends up happening is we're swept under the rug, we're thrown under the bus, we're pretty much we're just there. And then after they're done with us, they kind of, you know, they just forget about who we are. And, you know, to me, this is the thing. Being a Métis, it shouldn't be about the money. It should be about the human that you're standing in front of and looking at their story and saying, hey, I support you. I should be there. I will support you, and I'll be there with you. And when it comes time to going, you know, to especially this type of scenario and story like Clayton had, he should have had like the whole darn province with him and saying, you know what, bravo, here you go. This is exactly the type of people we should be encouraging, not labeling them and then discouraging them, and then basically not acknowledging what they're fighting for, because we're up against the colonial system. We're up against the systemic racism. We're up against so many barriers. And like you said, it's discrimination, it's lateral violence, it's oppression. We're in this pot of crap. And then and we're left to fend for ourselves. I feel the same way myself. I honestly do. It's hard as a Métis woman to try and constantly, you know, voice this and voice this and voice this, and then the more we voice this, and then they're, oh, you know, that's just Corian, just, you know, she's just a big mouth radical, you know, troublemaker, you know, like for me, like I try to challenge our I guess our justice system. Like look at one instance. I took our leaders to MJC, and basically they're allowed to breach bylaws. For me, I'm just like sitting here. Is it flawed when leaders are allowed to appoint their own cousins to be, you know, MJC representatives, and then they get away with breaching the bylaws? Like, what the hell is the system for if they're allowed to do that? It's the same thing like Clayton. He was up against so much, and they just pushed him under the rug.
Yeah,
there's no human rights here. There's no respect. There's no respect.
Not only is the leaders of these organizations, not only is the leaders of these organizations colonialized, they're also, if you look right here in Manitoba, what happened with David Chartrand supporting the Winnipeg police, and in that letter giving a thank you to the RCMP as they constantly screwing over the Indigenous people. This is wrong on all levels to have somebody take out a full page kiss-ass ad to the police chief of the Winnipeg police, and also to in that same thank you letter to thank the RCMP when there's so many issues. That shows the disconnect between the people collecting all the millions of dollars and the actual people that have joined these organizations. These cards mean nothing anymore.
That's the sad part. That's the colonial mentality. It's not about the people anymore. It's not about the collective. It's about how much money you can put in your pocket, sweep everything under the rug, and forget about whatever. Basically, we're supposed to be a collective.
And we'll end the call on that note. And absolutely right, Corian. This is about the collective. And Audrey Portress does not understand that. She should not be a leader. She is not willing to fight against the corruption and injustices that are happening to the Métis people. And let me just say this. The RCMP needs to definitely conduct retraining, because there's a lot of corruption within the RCMP There's corruption within government offices. There's corruption within Métis organizations, and that is very evident with all the dirty and underhanded things that's been going on, and no one seems to care. Is government officials being bought off? Is law enforcement being bought off? These are questions that we're currently seeking answers to. And again, I hope y'all enjoyed this show. Clayton was done absolutely dirty and wrong by the RCMP and the MNA. So there needs to be change in the Métis organization. There needs to be change in the RCMP. And we're working to fight against the injustices that's happening to many Indigenous people and us Métis as well. And so people like David Chartrand writing thank you letters to the police and to the RCMP, thanking the RCMP in those letters, and the police chief of Winnipeg Police. This is clearly an area of concern, and we need leaders that will fight for their people and not thank the police that is wronging and doing injustices to the Indigenous and Métis people. That's it for us. Hope you enjoyed the show.